Hey, Bruce here, the 5-Minute Handyman. I am doing some trim painting and wanted to show you how I do that. So let's take a look at some of the hardware and we'll talk about it. So what I've got is I've got a door frame here. This is new trim that's put on to this frame, and I've already taken and prepped this. I've caulked the seam in between here, and so now I'm going to be painting this and painting some of the baseboard. So I want to show you how to do that. And what we're going to do here is I've got my trim paint. It's a white satin paint. I like to use satin on trim. It gives it a little bit of a sheen, but doesn't make it shiny like a semi-gloss would. But so what I'm going to do is and the way I load my brush is I put it into the paint, and then I tap it on the sides, and what that does is it takes and fills the brush bristles and cleans off the outside. And so I don't want to go ahead and wipe. I just want to go ahead and slap it on the sides. And so what we'll do is we'll start here, and you'll see I don't have tape down or anything. I typically don't like to use tape unless I absolutely have to. One of the tips that I had was when you are installing baseboard or quarter round, take some paper and put it underneath that quarter round or baseboard before you install it, and then you can put nails in it to hold it, and then you'll have a paper here so that when you paint it won't get on the floor, and then afterwards just pull this out. So that's one tip. But on this particular section here, I'm just going to be real careful on how I get the paint down to the tiles. Now the reality is I'm not going to be using any quarter round on here because I have my tiles going underneath the baseboard trim. And I like the look of where we have a nice straight corner here. I didn't want to have quarter round on top of that. There's instances where you would need to do that if you are not pulling the baseboard out and putting in a new floor. Then you need to have a little bit of a space there, and then you cover that with the shoe molding or quarter round. But in this particular case, I was down to the stud, so I put in new sheetrock, did the floor, and then installed the baseboard, so I don't need to worry about putting in shoe molding. So I'm going to paint this. And because my trim is already pre-primed, and I'm doing white on white, I don't have to go exactly down to the very, very edge of the tile. I can go just a 1/16 of an inch up from the tile. So that makes it a little bit less stressful for me to have to put down paint without getting it on my tile. Now if I do get it on the tile, then what I'll have to do is get a rag or paper towel and wipe that up. And what we'll do is make it a wet paper towel so that it will pull the paint up off of the tile. All right, so you can see now as I painted this edge here, the caulk that I have right in here gives me a nice clean edge. Okay, and so this white caulk that I've got right in between here, when I paint over that, it gives a nice transition. And so that's exactly what I'm looking for. All right, so now in the corner here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come down almost to the bottom. Now this is also behind the door of the bathroom, and so it's hidden. And so it might be a little bit harder to get in here with my paintbrush, but it's still going to be hidden. And so now when I'm putting white paint on my baseboard, I'm going to go up onto the wall just a little bit. So when I come down and cut with my color, I'll have a nice uniform white line to come across. Okay, and so I'm going to go up about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. Just get a nice coating of paint on here, and Again, I want to just watch the bottom of my brush to make sure that I don't have any drips coming off. And I'll be up about a 1/16 from my tile. Now in the section here where I have the paper going underneath, I could be a little less cautious and get some paint on the paper, because when I pull it out, it won't be on the floor. But for the most part, you can just take your time and don't use wrist motions. Use your bigger joints like your elbow and shoulder to make the motions when you're painting. If you're painting a picture, you want to use your fingers and your wrist, but if you're doing walls, cutting, trim, those kind of things, you're going to want to use your elbow and your shoulder, the larger joint, so you get more uniformity in the lines that you're going to be cutting. All right, so I'm gonna take my white and I'm gonna go to the back edge of my trim, make sure I get that covered nicely. And so that's the process that I use. And so now this is going to be ready once this dries. Then I can come down with my color, and what I'll take, and I'll cut a nice color line, and I'll have a nice straight line going right along the baseboard. We always want to keep the top of the baseboard white, and then the wall, where the wall comes down, where it makes that transition. And again, I've used caulk in here to make sure that there's no spaces. And so I'll come down to that caulk when I make my line. So that's the process for paint and trim. And on this color, this pink stuff here, I'm going to need to do 2 coats. In fact, I think I'm going to do 2 coats on all the trim. We don't have too much of it here in this bathroom. And that'll give us a nice, durable finish. So thanks for watching. I'd love to have you subscribe to my channel. And if there's some painting techniques that you'd like me to discuss or explain, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks.